They remain a central bank today that has no gold. It wasn't necessarily just because the banks were trying to be sneaky. It was because the people themselves actually didn't need the gold. All right, everybody. So today we're going to take a look at Canada and how much gold has been in the coffers of the Canadian Central Bank and the Canadian Treasury versus the amount of money that the Canadian Central Bank has issued in its lifetime. So quick note here, those of you that followed my work for a long time, you know I'm a fan of the free banking school, free banking history. Canada is one of those famous cases. While the United States had a lot of unstable currency regimes, bimetallism, things in the second half of the 19th century here, started in 1873, the USA Coinage Act. Canada didn't have any of those bad regulations, and they had branches in their banking system that could be all over the nation, whereas in the United States, you had to have branching typically within your municipality or within your state, and a lot of other regulations that basically hindered the American system. They did not exist in Canada. Canada was a very free banking system. Smaller country for sure, but it had much better regulations, much less regulations, and no central bank all the way until 1935. I think it was actually 1933 that the Canada Central Bank was established, but nonetheless, I have data here from 1935. And we see, so again, look here now, we have gold as a percentage of money that the central bank issued. So this is only looking at central banking activity. It's not looking at the rest of the banks in the system. And indeed, those banks do today and did hold gold, but always, when there was no central bank around, the gold in the vaults was much, much less than the claims on that gold outstanding. And that wasn't necessarily just because the banks were trying to be sneaky or screw you over. It was because the people themselves actually didn't need the gold, didn't want the gold, didn't demand the gold, and in fact would prefer a higher yielding instrument on their money, which you get from banking. So that's how it works basically. But the point is 100% reserve, gold reserve banking. As I've been saying this whole series, it's a myth. And we can see it continues to be a myth here in Canada. And this is, imagine, I will show you eventually how the gold looked in free banking systems versus all of the notes issued outstanding and bills that actual banks were issuing, deposits that banks were issuing to their creditors, to their clients. But here, this is only the central bank. So imagine once we put the rest of the banking system in, this percentage is going to be even less. Point is, they as well started out with a big chunk of gold here, more than 50% backing their notes, actually more than 70%, 76% or so. That went down as a lot of them did. For example, we looked at Norway here, we looked at Sweden here. A lot of it went down. The gold holdings as a percentage of money issued after World War II and when the Bretton Woods dollar reserve system was established. Increased it a little bit here during the 50s, during the Vietnam War. Canada took it down even further still. Gold starts to flow freely. That, of course, while the gold may have not changed in the vaults relative to the cash, because of the massive increase in gold price, we see that Canada actually does turn to a 100% gold reserve system here. And again, put yourself, if you're a Bitcoiner right now, put yourself as a gold bug here in 1980. You would have thought that, the game was over and central banks could never weasel themselves out of the situation that they were. But we see that they in fact did that. Taking a moment to remind you that this show is brought to you by Trezor, home of the original Bitcoin hardware wallet. For over 10 years now, Trezor means business in Bitcoin security and functionality. When using their wallet software Trezor Suite to connect to the Bitcoin network, you're automatically connected via Tor, protecting your identity and giving you full control of your coins in a fully open source manner, both on the software level and on the hardware level. So head on over to Trezor.io to grab your brand new Trezor Safe 5 with a secure element, as well as a ton of available accessories to back up your keys and keep your coins safe. We have a major 40-year bull market in bonds, starts precisely at this time, at the start of the 80s. That pricks the gold bubble. People move into stocks as well. Same thing happens. So gold and the hard assets sort of become a risk-off trade. And this is the Great Moderation period. This is when a lot of economists are learning that deficits don't matter. A lot of economists that you see on TV today. And we see actually in the case of Canada, like the case of Norway, we get all the way here, even past the GFC, and they still decide, actually, let's not hold any gold in the vaults. Now, remember, there's a difference between talking about a free banking system, how that can work with creditors, depositors, people that demand their cash immediately versus people that want perhaps a higher yielding time deposit account, something like that. That's very different than this. This is a centralized authority which sort of thinks that they got it figured out, just like the economists in the 80s and the 90s think they have it figured out, that deficits don't matter. And they just ignore the gold bull here that began in 2000 at Brown's bottom and has continued on to this day, not without its dips, but they just decided, we don't need the gold, let's not have it on our books. And since mid-2016, Canada, early 2016, let's say, Canada fully sold off all of their gold that was in the official stocks of both the Treasury and the Bank of Canada, and they remain a central bank today that has no gold. So let me know what you think of this progress in the comments, and thanks for watching.